So, Mr. Payne, you're an electrical teacher and you went to college for electric stuff, but I've heard you took a class on emissions and whatnot.
I did a class in college called Environmental and Technical Assessment where we went through and we analyzed a lot of different environmental stuff like that in college, yes.
So, I'm writing a paper about vehicle emissions and some other stuff, so it's right up your alley. So, my first question for you is, what kind of vehicle are you currently driving at the moment?
Right now, it's a weird vehicle, but I drive a stick shift Subaru Crosstrek. It's a weird one.
So, that's gasoline, right?
It is gas
gasoline
car.
manual. So,
Yep. Still pretty efficient, but nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy, but not that old, right? What year?
2019.
2019, so yeah, pretty new. So, second question I got for you is, do you believe in further government regulation of emissions, or do you believe like the free market will be able to handle it itself?
The problem that I have with it is when you really look at where emissions come from, only about 10% of overall emissions are from vehicles. 90% of emissions are from buildings and other manufacturing and other facilities. So that's really where most of our emissions are coming from, and the cars is just such a low percentage. I think we are putting too much emphasis on it, since what we're doing is still working, and we're still finding oil in different places, and you can make biodiesel and do other stuff. So I think that we are probably going too far with it.
Yeah. So for question number 3, so we know we're hopefully moving away from these fossil fuels and whatnot.
Yeah.
So what would you think that the cleanest solution would be, like, overall?
Overall, the cleanest is a battery solution, but of course the mining and all of that stuff that creates the batteries can be a problem. But I did some studies on it. It still comes out that in the long run, electric cars are better. I wish I could find that paper, but I couldn't. But I remember figuring out that battery cars were in fact the best, as long as I think it was like 5 or 6 years. As long as you kept the car for like 6 years, that was the turnover point where it started becoming more efficient. Was like around, if I remember right, it was like
got a higher
5 to 8 years. Because of all, you have
higher upfront cost, but over time
higher
it's cheaper.
upfront cost, but also the higher environmental risk, because there's all the stuff that goes in fire risk, but also just the mining emissions and all of that stuff. Yep, all of that. But then after about, I think between 5 and 8 years, if I remember right, is when it starts to become more efficient. So if you can do a good job and take care of your car and charge it, efficiently, and don't drain it to zero and then charge it to 100% all the time, and you take care of your car, it should be better in the long run.
Okay. So question number 4, what is the most cost-effective, you kind of touched on that, but the cost-effective solution? What's the best way we're going to go? Because we've also seen other things like diesel electric, hydrogen.
I love diesel electric. Well, on the big truck end, I could totally see, like on the more heavy equipment side, I could totally see more diesel electric stuff, like take that train technology and put it into like semi-trucks and stuff. I could see that becoming an option because that's more efficient. Wait, I'm going to go back with the question. More cost effective. Batteries keep getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, because I also look on the solar end of the spectrum. And I remember 4 or 5 years ago, it was around $1 per watt, about 4 or 5 years ago. Nowadays, we're looking at about 20 cents a watt, 20, 30 cents. And you're looking at that and going, man, batteries are getting cheap.
Yeah, that's like you're doing kilowatt hours battery for car.
I mean, when you're looking at kilowatt hours of batteries too, and you're looking at solar setups, like for houses. So I think right now it's like still buying a gas car would be cheaper, but when you look at it in the long run, because batteries keep getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, that it really might be that in a couple years, like, and not that far off, depending on how things go. I haven't looked at graphs or anything, but I believe that electric actually eventually will be cheaper.
So, question number 5, what time frame do you think this transition between internal combustion or gasoline going to electric or diesel electric?
It all depends on situation, because there's so much.
Depends.
It so depends. I know they were trying to, what was it California trying to do? 2040?
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen.
2030?
It was 2035.
2035? And I very highly doubt it. I don't think our technology is going to be there quite yet. I can see by 2050 that the average person would have an electric car.
Depends on where you are.
Yeah, it depends on where you are, what you're doing. Like me, I know I have rural land that I travel to all the time, and I rely on gas for so many things up there. Like, not just driving. There's no way anyone would build a charging station up there either. It's in the middle of nowhere. So, and I wouldn't have it there because everything I'm doing is off grid anyway. So there's certain situations too where I'm like, should let the people decide kind of what they need.
And then I got 2 more questions. So the next one is, what do you think about increasing fuel efficiency to combat the emissions issues because you're using less fuel?
This is an interesting problem. So the thing is, the market keeps on going, and also between crash safety and just the market, vehicles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're getting less and less efficient. I think the most efficient car ever sold was the original Honda Insight, which is a little tiny box, which nobody would buy a little tiny car like that anymore. The original Honda Insight, original mileage, if I can find it, 61 combined, and 70 miles per gallon on the highway.
How big's the gas tank? How often you fill it up?
Oh,
monthly?
Yeah, basically. So yeah, it had 70 miles per gallon highway driving in 2000. That was 2006. So, but the thing is, that was like the peak of efficiency. We're getting bigger and bigger cars now for both safety reasons.
It's an arms race. One car gets bigger. Well, I don't want to drive that small car. I don't want to die.
Exactly. So cars are getting less efficient because they're getting bigger, and companies are
dynamic.
Yeah, they're less. Yeah, there's a lot of things. The weight, the aerodynamics, because of a bigger car. So that's a market issue. Is that if they make small cars, people don't buy them.
I also know for the diesel side, if you go up on your displacement and whatnot, you don't have to have DEF and whatnot, or you're burning it hotter. So you got a bigger engine. It's causing you to burn more fuel, but I mean, you don't have to. You're skirting around government regulation, but technically, in their
when
eyes,
it's big enough.
Yeah.
Because I know under 26 horsepower, like for little tractors and stuff, you don't need DEF. So there's an oversized too.
I don't want like big tractors. This new like the quad track, the stackers for Case or John Deere. They're running them, I think, either hot enough or they got big enough engines where they don't need to put DEF in them.
Really?
I know there's some there's a new truck for Mass Force or whatever, the Internationals. My teacher was at it for college, and I think they're only running EGR. There's no DEF in it anymore. It's just DPF. Where it's either one or the other. They're getting rid of one of them. So
interesting. All right, do you have one more question?
And the last question for you: what is your opinion on self-driving cars?
I think the technology is gonna. I honestly think that it's gonna. So the pro of it is that I think that self-driving cars will. I think they will be totally a thing. With new AI integration and stuff, I believe it's getting better and better. But and I know there are humanless taxis and stuff around, and they've proved that they work. The problem is that it decreases our human ability to analyze that risk. And over time, and I see this in education, I see this in a lot of different areas, where over time people be so accustomed to self-driving cars that it's making life too easy. It's complacency. It's making life too easy. If AI or whatever self-driving cars take over everything, will there be any, like, in a way, joy? Because living with a tiny bit of danger makes things fun. And I'm just wondering if it's gonna lead further into people being more depressed, which is totally off kind of what it is. But self-driving cars, you have to not just think about the cars that are driving are fun. You have to think. You have to think about the freedom of the human conscience. That got more in depth than I thought. But
well, thank you for your time, Mr.
Yeah,
Payne.
no problem. Thank you.
Good time interviewing you. Thank you.